Hello everyone, this is SquarelyCircle with first SquarelyCircle Plays. I'm going to be showing you my modded Skyrim setup. Now, one of the reasons why I've decided to start recording is I got a new computer with some pretty high stats. The CPU is an i7 6700K and the graphics card is an MSI GTX 1070 Gaming X. And that's pretty good. You know, it's not a 1080, but I do 1080p gaming, so I don't really need a 1080 because that's a little bit overkill. Even the 1070 is considered overkill for 1080p gaming. People recommend 1440p if you're going to be using a 1070. However, with some of the newer games, including my Skyrim highly modded setup, you can get lower frame rates at 1080p if you have the settings set up really high. For example, in Skyrim, with all the mods I've got, in really foggy areas outdoors where I can see a long distance and there's just a lot going on, I've gotten as low as 45 frames per second, which is quite low on a 1070. Now, that speaks mostly to how intensely I've modified Skyrim, because, I mean, come on, it's a GTX 1070. It can handle quite a lot of graphical capacity. But still, it's an interesting thing to note, and I'll be showing my my frames per second as I play, so you can kind of see it sticks pretty much at 60 frames per second, with some of the outdoors areas getting kind of more like 55 frames per second, or as low as 45 frames per second is as low as I've seen, depending on where I am, what the weather's like, what's going on. So let's get into my mods. I want to show you my mod organizer setup. So this is mod organizer. Now I use mod organizer instead of Nexus mod manager. It gives you more control and it's just easier to use. And I say it's easier to use in that it's easier to have control over what you do with your mods. And I mean, because if you want to talk about easy to use, the Steam Workshop is the easiest to use, but you have absolutely no control. I mean, you can't seriously mod Skyrim if you're just using the Steam Workshop. You can get a mod. You might be able to get a few mods, but I have 280 mods, and you need something to manage those in order to make it so that Skyrim doesn't crash every time you start it. Now, Skyrim crashes anyway. Skyrim crashes no matter what you do. Skyrim is a kind of poorly designed game. As wonderful as it just is a game that crashes. So you're probably, while I'm recording this, we're going to come across a few crashes. I don't exit Skyrim, I crash out of Skyrim. That's how I end playing. Is okay, it must be time to stop because Skyrim crashed again. But for the most part, I'm able to play. There's occasional crash. So let's go over my mods. Now I use the step guide for my mods. Now, Step is a guide that tells you exactly what mods to install, what order to install them, and what options to pick. And it has a core and an extended version, and I use the extended step process, except in this case, because I wanted to kind of test what can my GTX 1070 do, because I wanted to test that, I went with much higher resolutions on all of the options. They say to use the 1K resolution, sometimes lower if it's a small object to use. And we're not talking about the resolution of the monitor. I use 1080p monitor resolution. We're talking about the resolution of the textures. So instead of 1K, I will sometimes use 2K, 4K if it's available, and I think in one case I even use an 8K resolution. That's just ridiculous. And these are, like I said, the resolutions of the textures that you see in the world. It makes it look beautiful. It requires a massive amount of video RAM, but the GTX 1070 has 8 gigabytes of video RAM, so it's not really a major problem. And I was actually quite surprised with how heavy I made the modding. I made all the largest resolution texture files. It actually started out running at higher than 60 frames per second, which is not good for Skyrim. I had to limit it to 60 frames per second because you get glitches if you go above 60 frames per second. So the 1070 can really handle, in most cases, it can really handle really well the high resolution textures. So I recommend the step guide. It takes a day, an entire day, if you know what you're doing, to just install each of these in turn. Partially that's just because it's large downloads of graphics files and so forth, and just takes time to download it and then install it. And you just go through each of these mods step by step, one after another, read what they say on the notes, do the detailed instructions, and you'll have a functional and fun version of Skyrim. Now, in addition, and it's going to take some learning. You're going to have to learn a few things, a few key concepts as you go through this, but I really highly recommend it. It's the best way to mod Skyrim, and it really improves the experience. In addition, I've downloaded a lot of other mods, and I wanted to go over some of the extra mods with you. Now, of course, I've got all the step mods here. There is one change I made to there's one change I made. That's number 64. So let's go up and look at around 64. Alright, 63, the Skyrim Flora overhaul. Now, the step recommended the older, lower resolution version, but I wanted the high resolution version because I wanted to test stuff, but the high resolution version did not come with a grass mod, and so it was designed for another grass mod. For any other grass mod, they say install a grass mod as well. So the Skyrim Flora overhaul, I used the higher resolutions, but then I went with the Verdant grass mod. And while I was looking through grass mods, I also found enhanced landscapes. And I liked it so much that first I installed the Skyrim Flora overhaul, then I installed Verdant, a beautiful grass mod. I really like it, even in some ways better than the enhanced landscapes. But the enhanced landscapes, they add so much to the beauty of Skyrim and the interesting features that you find around, that I decided in the end that it was the most important. I believe, looking at the game, that Enhanced Landscapes has replaced Verdant, that I'm no longer seeing what Verdant had to offer, and that Enhanced Landscapes has just covered it up. But I still installed it. I don't think I'm seeing Verdant, but it's still, Enhanced Landscapes looks so good that I just left it alone. Okay, then there's lots of those graphical mods and stuff like that. That's the one thing I want to note about the change I did from Step, just because you're going to be seeing that difference. It was clearly not the normal landscapes with the grass as you see some of the interesting locations and stuff like that. Then some of the gameplay mods that I use, I wanted to bring up because they really make a huge difference. You're going to be wondering what on earth is going on if you don't understand the gameplay mods. So let's see, when do they start? So let's go about 200th mod. Alright, so bandoliers. First thing I'm going to recommend is bandoliers, bags, and pouches. It's an immersive way to increase your carrying capacity. And if you're someone like me who a bit of a pack rat, you're going to need more carrying space, and this is an immersive way where you don't feel like you're cheating. It's just you gotta craft it, you gotta do all this stuff. It makes sense in game, and you're able to carry more items. And alright, I've got kids, so that's what you hear there. So I really highly recommend Bandoliers. It's a really nice immersive mod. I do use glowing ores. I know that's kind of cheating, but I don't care. I'm a gamer. I want to play and want to have the interesting gaming types of things. So there are some other mods. The other ones I want to point out are A Matter of Time is the clock mod I use. I really like it. There's Immersive Patrols, which just adds patrols throughout Skyrim that makes the game feel more alive. Then there's Unread Books Glow, so that's what I'm using to make it so I can tell which books I've read. The More HUD makes it so there's more information given when you look at an item. Harvest Overhaul. I Need. Now, I Need, there are three major need mods that are out there. There's I Need, which is probably the least well known. Realistic Needs and Diseases, which is probably the most well known, and Somebody's More Complex Needs, which is probably in the middle. I Need is the simplest. Realistic Needs and Diseases is somewhere in between, and More Complex Needs is quite complicated. They have everything from calories and muscle growth and your salt intake and so forth. And I really like the complex needs. I really like the I Needs. They're complete opposite ends. The Realistic Needs and Diseases is probably the most famous, and it's probably my least favorite because it just has some inconvenient features like decreasing your walking speed. And so I don't want to walk around at a slow speed just because I made one mistake. And so I just use I Need. Now, I Need has some negative consequences, but it's really simplified in comparison. I just like it better. Campfires is a mod that adds camping, but the real reason I have campfires is because it allows you to have frostfall. Frostfall, if I have to recommend one mod for Skyrim, it's going to be Frostfall. And what Frostfall does is it makes it so that there is exposure to the weather, exposure to the elements, and you need to protect yourself from that. You need to not just protect yourself with armor so that when you get hit you take less damage, but you need to protect yourself so that when you're up in the mountains in the snow you don't die. You don't pass out from the cold or get frostbite. And this adds such a huge amount to the game. Like, it nearly takes over like what you're thinking about when you're equipping yourself. Instead of thinking about, oh, I need to have the highest number for my armor, you're thinking about like, well, is what I'm wearing going to be sufficient for the trip that I'm making, weather-wise? And then you have to think like, well, how do I balance that with the armor provided? Because the best armor isn't necessarily providing the best coverage or the best insulation to the weather. So I really highly recommend Frostfall. The next thing I highly recommend is Hunterborn. It's a very immersive hunting modification. It really, I think immersive really is the word there. It makes you feel like you're doing more than just killing an animal and looting its body with finding gold coins or whatever. It's much more immersive. I like better fast travel. I disable fast travel and just use the immersive fast travel of better fast travel, which is still fast travel, unlike some mods which just get rid of fast travel. You have to wait there when you travel. You just travel the whole way. It is fast travel, but it's localized. You can't just fast travel from everywhere. You got to find a carriage that brings you from place to place. So I really like it. It's immersive. Perks Maximus is complete perk overhaul of the game. I recommend it. It makes it all the perks matter. Perks Maximus comes with what they call these fluffy descriptions. For example, it says, "Oh, after using your heavy weapons for so long, you come to realize the true power that a swing can have," or whatever. This is some description that makes no sense. And I have a patch that replaces all those with in-game descriptions, such as, for that example, "Your heavy weapons do 20% more damage," and so that way. I can know what the perks actually do, but Perks Maximus has more meaningful perks and extended perk tree, and I really like it. There's the Apocalypse Magic. Let's see. Better torches. Now, with the ENB I use, which ENBs, they improve the visual look of the game. One of the things they tend to do is make it much darker inside. Interior areas like caves are much darker, and so when exploring with the torch, you can't really see anything. I mean, you can see a few feet in front of you. So I use better torches. That makes it so that torches are darker, but the area that they light is twice as large. So you can actually explore using a torch instead of feeling like you're just wandering through the dark, even when you got a torch. Now, if you do not have a torch, it is pitch black in the dark. I mean, these ENBs, when it's dark, it is dark. And so having a torch is so absolutely critical when exploring dark areas. In addition, there's light up the night. People have torches. This is mostly immersive, I think, because who walks around in the dark? You can't see anything. So why are these people walking around not able to see anything? So people start carrying torches around, and it's immersive. It also makes it so that if you find somebody who's died, they've got a torch on them, and you can have it. There's slightly more torches in the game because of that. It's kind of nice. Categorized favorite menu is not that great. However, the default favorites menu is even worse. Categorized favorite menu gives you something to work with, and it's the best thing out there, so I recommend it. Cartographer map markers adds tons of map markers, such as buildings in towns and things like that. Immersive laundry is an interesting one because it feels like, immersive laundry, who cares about this mod, except it really gives the game this feeling like people live here. People have to live their lives in these towns. So I kind of like it. It's kind of simple. Animalica adds tons of new animals to the game. They have a lore-friendly version, they have a non-lore-friendly version. The non-lore-friendly version has tropical animals and exotic animals, and I decided to go with the non-lore-friendly version. That may bother some people, but I just want to see what kind of animals they had, so I haven't really seen many of those animals. Last thing I want to point out is the alternate start mod. Now there are 3 major alternate start mods. There's alternate start, there's Skyrim Unbound, and then there's random alternate start. So this alternate start is that I've got installed is Live Another Life. And I used to use random alternate start, and frankly, I liked random alternate start better. One of the reasons I liked random alternate start more than Live Another Life is that random alternate start always started you with a quest. So you would start in a location, and for my first quest one time, I had to solve a murder. I appeared in the middle of this area where everyone was dead, and I had to go solve it. And it was just a really fun way to start the game. Alternate start basically starts you with a backstory and gives you nothing. You got to go start the game from nothing. There's no quest to drive you. You just go out from where you start and you start doing stuff. And I don't like that as much. I like it when there's the quest to drive you to begin, and you can ignore it, but at least it's there. And in random alternate start, it starts that way. In Live Another Life, it does not. At least not that I've seen so far from the various startings I've done. And then there's all these patches that make it all work together. All right, so that's my Skyrim setup, and I'll catch you in my first gameplay video. See ya.